Touhou has many fun characters. You got Reimu. Oh? You have someone like Rumia. Oh dear, I guess it's that time again. Touhou is one of my favorite franchises of all time, as I own copious amounts of Fumos and other merchandise, and the amount of time I have put into these videos is pretty impressive. But despite being able to do all of this, I haven't been able to 1cc any of the games, so I guess all of this means nothing, so I'll just jump to the Undertale camp and start posting cringe fanfictions. I'm kidding, but by far my favorite aspect of Touhou is the community. It's ever so creative with it releasing so many artworks every single day. The remixes are great, but for me, Joyful's Osana Reimu duology is one of the best fanworks ever made. Osana Reimu and ReiReimu is one of my favorite pieces of media of all time. The art style is iconic, the music here has one of the most beautiful arrangements from this franchise, and the story told left an impact on my life. I just can't stop thinking about this doujin and how it has affected the entire Touhou community in general. Back in 2021, I said I prefer Osana Reimu, but after watching ReiReimu again since I finished the original recap series, I have to disagree with that statement. I honestly can't pick a favorite between these, as both exist in their own ways, and I think comparing them to each other isn't exactly fair. So last year I remade the Osana Reimu recap as my 1k sub special, and it's still to this day my favorite video I've ever had the pleasure to work with. So after a year of just taking things simple and thinking about it, I wanted to remake my old ReiReimu videos. They're very dated, alright, there's just so much missing that I am not exactly happy with them anymore. I just want to cover this sequel better and deliver a more polished product, and ultimately I just really want to talk about this universe again, as I can't stop thinking about it. So consider this remake series as a finished robot trying to focus his obsession onto something more productive and leaking all his lubricants when he reaches episode 5. I also want to mention that while I'm going to be recapping the story and what I love about it, I'll try my best to analyze the stories and point out some interesting stuff as to not to make this video feel entirely redundant. Like with the older recaps, ReiReimu is a lot longer and my last remake was nearly an hour long, so not to entirely burn myself out and potentially this old PC, I'll split this into different parts. That way it will be easier for people to look for the episodes they want to see and let me work on the other stuff as well. Plus, you know, not to cause some combustion that will kill me in a spot. I'll also use the dubbed version for this as well, because it brings out more emotion and I like the acting in it. I hope you're all ready, as this is ReiReimu Recap Remake Part 1. ReiReimu is a sequel to Osana Reimu, which takes place between Immaterial and Missing Power and Imperishable Night. It's created by doujin artist named Joyful, who released the doujin to Nico Nico video back in 8th of May 2012. Its first episode was released around 2 months after the last episode of Osana Reimu, and its final episode was released 30th of August 2014, so it took around 2 years to finish the sequel story, but it's for a good reason, as the episodes here are much longer. It's highly regarded in the community as one of the best fan stories out there. It's also pretty faithful to the canon, as it only has some fanon elements like Rumia being a great yokai who got her powers sealed away and Yuuka being sometimes out of character. But because this is a sequel, I shall mention the events that led here. At the end of Osana Reimu, Miko, who was Reimu's mom, sacrificed herself so Rumia can reach her happiness, and that turned her to the small yokai that we all know and love. Reimu, along with everyone else, got their memories wiped of Miko and Rumia, and Reimu was once again an orphan. But despite not remembering who Rumia is, they both still ended up together to the current day. This story focuses more on Reimu and her relationship with Rumia and how much Miko affects the people she knew despite not being around anymore. Cause, you know, she's dead. The ending left some possibilities open for a sequel, like what would become of Reimu and Rumia, and here we see what Joyful visioned for their future. So let's start with the first episode. The first episode starts off at Miko's grave, where we meet Rinosuke and Yukari. She is surprised to see him all this way and asks why he offers flowers to a grave of a person that he doesn't know. Even if he can't remember who it belongs to, he feels like it's for a person he can't forget. Despite Yukari's best attempt at making everyone forget about Miko, she left a huge impact on their lives that still affects them subconsciously, which kind of offers some relief that even if her name is forgotten, her missing presence is not. Kind of a dick move to sleep when someone talks about your dead best friend. They both wonder why someone would leave a flower garland at her grave, but we will find out who would that be soon enough. We then go to the Hakure shrine where Reimu and Marisa are having a duel and where they show some of their abilities. They're probably fighting because Marisa stole Reimu's only remaining donations.
Alright, that's it. You're going to fucking Brazil, Marisa.
But when Reimu tries to activate her fantasy nature, it fails and shatters on the ground, which leaves her no other option but to punch Marisa really hard. She clearly isn't happy that Reimu broke her own rules by not using Damaku, yet she tries to claim it was her Hakure bomber technique, which if you don't remember is the same ability that Miko used during the final episodes of Osan and Reimu, which makes this interaction hurt my feelings pretty bad. We also meet Alice and Suika who are watching their bickering. But if this is supposed to be a sequel, then where is Rumia? Like last time, I want to focus a bit on the characters. Reimu has grown from a curious and sociable child to her present day self where she's distant, joyful and lazy. She has inherited a bit of Miko's and Rumia's personalities as she has her mother's stubbornness and Rumia's like Chandere's elements. Marisa used to be extremely shy but has grown to become more confident and social as they have grown to become close friends. Rumia has turned from the powerful yet slightly Chandere's yokai to a cute, simple-minded girl who is friendly to everyone she has met. And Yukari is Yukari, she is still the manipulative gap yokai that does anything for Gensokyo. Back to the episode, despite Reimu and Rumia losing their memories, they have been close friends ever since then, even if Reimu won't admit it, which is quite wonderful to think that despite Yukari's meddling, nothing could break their friendship. But Reimu not being honest to herself might explain a bit about her fantasy nature not working, but we have to watch more to know. I really like this scene as it starts out funny yet turns to heartwarming real fast, as Reimu is extremely pissed at Rumia always biting her whenever she gets the chance to, and Reimu pulls her cheeks in retaliation but calms down when group of fairies and Jen mention that Rumia has a gift for her, in the form of a flower garment. This is clearly a nod to the 4th episode of Osan and Reimu where Rumia experienced happiness with being gifted one, so it makes sense why she will want to give them to others subconsciously. We can see that Reimu is clearly experiencing a lot of joy but chooses to hide them and gives an excuse. But still happy with her gift, she doesn't have a chance to thank Rumia before being jumped. Rinosuke and Yukari appear at the shrine and Yukari says what I mentioned earlier but is still happy that they both keep coming back to each other. I mentioned this last time but I still really like the ending credits. We get to enjoy this Touhou's fantastic soundtrack while we see a bunch of fan art of the series, and we usually have after credits scenes. For this episode it shows the title card. I really like how the first episode was filled to the brim with nods to the previous story, with the flower garments, Yukari's mind vibe and that boxing technique where it not only hurt Rumia but my feelings as well. It showed a fun introduction to our characters, some new and returning, and it really made me feel warm on the inside. So let's move on to the 2nd episode where we can see where the story goes. Episode 2 starts off with Reimu trying to activate her fantasy nature, but frustrated that she can't get it to work, tries to slack off until Yukari comes to lecture her. I do like how Reimu wants a spell card that goes full Rambo mode, but quickly goes silent when Yukari explains what fantasy nature is.
無双転生代々白麗の巫女だけに授けられる技よ。その技は本人の生まれ持った力でもあり、宿主の心に強く反映する技でもあるの。
Miko could use her own heart's darkness as raw power and Reimu will have her own unique version of it. I would really like someday to have this explored in some of the newer Touhou media, like what fantasy natures there were before Reimu's. Yukari tells Reimu that where her heart feels and belongs to, it will become her own fantasy nature.
心のあり方ね。
I love these two's reactions whenever they interact, it's ever so funny. We then move to Yuuka's garden, which is filled to the brim with all the foes Reimu has met from her previous adventures, and is clearly displeased with this. She remains as the most relatable character, as she would rather be all by herself at the shrine sipping tea. We can see that without Miko, she turned from a social child to a more introverted person who would rather be alone, and that makes you wonder what Reimu could have turned into if the events of Osana Reimu didn't happen. Yukari then abandons her to continue her sleep, and Reimu is then greeted by Remelia, the older sister of Scarlet's. Remelia says it's fate that they met today and wants Reimu to become her property and decides to extend her sex offender registry. She fails and now her charisma is broken. The magicians think this event is pointless until Marisa and Flandre, the younger sister of Scarlet, surprise them, and when Reimu's jealous of the magicians being carefree, Yomu tries to slash her.
さすがレイムさん、やりますね。やりますねじゃねえの。何をするんですか、レイムさん。はあ、それはこっちのセリフよ、半人半霊。いきなり切りつけてくるやつがいるか。
Yomu tells her that Yuuka told her to get Reimu after she has done 30 plates of New Year's food. But Yuuka lied just to get food, and that breaks Yomu spiritually until fucking Suika comes out of nowhere, feeling left out and thunderflaps them. Yuuka then comes to water her flowers and is clearly not pleased about what happened to her garden, and you can guess what happens next.
どうも、ゆかさん。さて、レイムたちは楽しんでるかしらね。
Yukari and Yuuka are having a small conversation, and Yuuka brings up Yukari coming to erase her memory. Despite Yukari being the baddest bitch in all of Gensokyo, she hasn't been successful in erasing memories about Miko with Yuuka, so she remembers everything.
Hey Reimu, you remind me of your mother. She was a very nice woman. Very hot too. Hey, did you also know that she is fucking dead?
It's never explained why Yuuka never told Reimu about Miko and all that, but maybe she thought that Reimu doesn't need to experience the pain again. While they continue talking, she questions why a group of yokai will play around Reimu, who exterminates yokas for her job, and should she be considered a failure as a Hakurei. She makes a really good point though. Why does Reimu befriend them instead of doing her job as a yokai exterminator? Well, it's explained in a flashback when Reimu was first starting her yokai hunting. Yukari is lecturing her about being the first Miko to teach their duties and how the previous Hakurei did their job to uphold the balance in Gensokyo. And then we get to see Reimu's perspective of where she has been beating up this yokai and could very easily exterminate her, but decides to spare her. Reimu then says to Yukari that yokai extermination is boring, and that's the reason she doesn't do it. It's true she doesn't like it, but not because it's boring, but maybe because she befriended Rumia, who is a yokai in her childhood, and because of it, she doesn't feel comfortable with the idea of exterminating them. But Yukari starts laughing at her statement, saying that she is the first Miko to ever say that, and that brings us back to the present where Yukari counteracts Yuka's talks by simply stating she is fine just this way. As far as Hakurei Mikos are concerned, she's probably a failure, but she's Hakurei Reimu after all. Yukari is so right. Miko was hated by humans and yokas alike for doing her job as a yokai exterminator, which left her alone, filled to the brim with regret and sadness, which then forced her to wear a mask. But because Reimu decided to do something different and didn't repeat Miko's mistakes, she has made so many friends and allies that she is never alone, even if she just wants to spend her days at the shrine drinking tea by herself. While yes, she might be a failure as a yokai exterminator, but she has become so much more. She has carved herself a unique identity as a Miko that shows compassion towards her foes.
そうよね。不器用なミコさん。
After ending credits, Rumia gives a flower garment to Yuuka, and while she gets patted on the head, Yuuka and Yukari notice that the seal has started to wither and is about to break. This episode was really entertaining, with lots of fun moments and foreshadowing for future events, and I just love how Miko's actions still affect the story, even if Reimu doesn't realize it. Reimu's decision to not kill the yokas has made her overall a lot happier person, and I really love the cute moments like Rumia jumping on Reimu, being introduced to the foes of the three games like Remelia and Yomu, and it was just overall really fun to watch them all interact with each other. But as that seal is about to break, something is about to happen. But I mean, come on, it can't be that bad. It will probably just be very awkward for Yuuka to explain about Rumiya. Well, that's horrifying. Meanwhile, Reimu's having dreams about festivals fireworks with her mother and Rumiya from episode 5 of Osana Reimu until she wakes up at 3 AM confused about the dream until Marisa charges in yelling that they got a problem. I mean, she's probably just over exaggerating a bit. It can't be that bad. I take my words back, it's really bad. One thing that I absolutely love is that ReiReimu does its own thing. It's smart enough to know that after Osana Reimu, the dark plot twist won't work this time around and doesn't try to prolong the inevitable conflict, starting it right after episode 2, where you get to breathe a bit before shit hits the fan. Yukari pops out and reveals the one behind this incident is Rumiya herself. She explains about the broken seal in her ribbon, the giant blob is the darkness she has been storing inside her and not being sure what caused her to end up like this. But one thing is for certain, the darkness is dissolving everything, including the very foundations of Gensokyo and the great Hakurei barrier that hides their realm from the outside world. If it dissolves, Gensokyo will vanish. Now that's quite bad, but here's a small nitpick, so bear with me. This isn't really friendly to the canon as Rumiya isn't that powerful to cause the world to end like this, but because this is fan-made work and really well executed one at that, I can forgive this. Marisa, being the hyperactive child she is, says it's an incident for them to solve, but Yukari clearly is not pleased with her rushing and says there's no need for that as she has commanded her Shikigamis to set up multiple large-scale barriers to erase the darkness. And Marisa doesn't take that very well until Yukari starts strangling her, lecturing her about this is not being one of those little games she has been playing and referencing Rumiya's past as she has devoured countless humans.
私が愛した世界を壊そうとしているなら容赦しない
She's not playing this time around as we have seen what kind of damage Rumiya caused in the past and especially now with having world-ending powers. Yukari then releases Marisa and suggests she and Reimu stay out of her way and asks if she understands. Reimu has been quietly eating cookies, she'd rather not deal with this shit and agrees with her terms. Marisa leaves in anger and one thing that is kind of surprising is how well Reimu is taking this. She heard that her friend ate entire villages before her and sees Yukari being extremely violent towards her best friend, but continues being silent. It's almost as if she's hiding her feelings. Later on she's sitting on the shrine's porch thinking that without her it's awfully quiet, but then something jumps on her and it's revealed to be Rumiya, but it's more like she imagined it to be her. It's maybe her true feelings showing up as an hallucination to prove how much she cares about her, and then we get this similar scene of Reimu sitting with her back towards us, just like Miko in her flashbacks. But instead of being alone, she's with Rumiya who is giving her the flower garment. I am not 100% sure, but I think the flower garment is supposed to symbolize happiness, a gift to be shared with your loved ones. Rumiya has been constantly sharing them throughout the episodes, especially with Reimu and Yuuka, the two people that taught her how to be happy. She may not remember why it makes her happy, but just want to share it with people she loves. Notably with Reimu, who saved her in the past.
やれやれこんなことに今頃きつくなんて私もとんだバカ野郎ねよし
I love this moment so much as it shows how different Reimu is from Miko. Sure, they share some similarities like their greed for donation, stubbornness and generally wanting to be by themselves, but it shows Reimu isn't truly alone as Marisa joins her mission. Reimu doesn't want her to come, but Marisa argues that they are inseparable rivals since their childhood, and that because they're friends, it concerns her as well. Reimu doesn't have a chance to answer before being stopped by Yukari. She's clearly displeased with them not staying out of the way and starts questioning Reimu, as what she's about to do will risk everything and is Rumiya that important to her, and I love Reimu's answer to this.
いいや全然ないわへえだってあいつは断ることに噛みつくしおバカに頭悪いしおまけに尻も噛みつくしよだれも垂らしてくるし 先手持ってべったりくっついてくるし、そんな奴が大切な奴なわけないじゃない。でも嫌いじゃなかったわ、そういうの。
She wanted to be left alone, yet she never minded the company, especially Rumia's presence, and Yukari's plan won't let things go back to the way they were. This scene is so good. Reimu's character has started to develop as she has a habit to hide how she feels, but here she's at least somewhat honest. Like Reimu doesn't want to admit that she wants Rumia to be here again, but also won't just sit around and do nothing, and this time around she won't have to save her alone like Miko did, as she has Marisa on her side.
やっぱりあなた、白麗の巫女失格だわ。だったら力つくでもおとなしくさせるわ。結局こうなるのね。ま、私たちらしいぜ。それもそうね。
They managed to defeat Yukari, who claims it's useless now, as Rumia's darkness has eaten through the seals and it's impossible to stop it now. And after one more hour, Reimu will die. But she doesn't have time to worry about that and flies off to stop Rumia. Then Rinosuke appears and says she let them go on purpose and that a great yokai won't lose to mere humans. Yukari claims that she fogged them with her true power, but this confirms one thing. She is hiding something, but we won't really know what until very later on.
Yukari. マリサとレイムを頼む。
まったく、みんな勝手ね。
Episode 3 was great. I don't really know what else to say, I really liked it. I love how Joyful knows not to try to switch and bait again and just gets direct to the conflict. Reimu is seriously greatly written and I do not wish to spoil the rest of the episodes, but it gets so much better as their story progresses. I love when Reimu tries to pretend to be okay with Yukari's plans, only to get reminded that she is in fact really cares about Rumia and is willing to go even against Yukari to save her friend. If that is not true friendship, then I don't know what is. I would really want to continue, but I just reached 11 pages of this script, so maybe it's a good time to end it here. I just want to say that ReiReimu is really great, so I can't wait to work on the second part. If you made it this far, I really want to thank you for watching. Do leave a like if you enjoyed the video and have a nice day.